अस्सलाम वालेकुम। प्रोग्राम एम्बेसी रोड में खुश आमदीद नाज़रीन। आज हमारे मेहमान हैं पाकिस्तान में डेनमार्क के सफ़ीर उफ़े वुल्फ हैकल, और हम उनसे गुफ्तगू करेंगे पाकिस्तान और डेनमार्क के ताल्लुकात के हवाले से। इलाकाई उमूर पर भी हमारी गुफ्तगू होगी, और फिर जो आलमी मसाइल हैं जिनमें दहशत गर्दी है और दूसरे जो मजहबी मसाइल हैं उन पर भी बातचीत होगी। Ambassador, thank you for joining us in this program.
Thank you for allowing me to appear on it.
Thank you. Let's start with bilateral relations between Pakistan and Denmark. How do you rate these relations at the moment?
We are enjoying a very warm and friendly relationship between our two countries. One aspect that I'm happy to mention is that there are maybe around 20,000 Pakistanis living in Denmark who are contributing very well to the Danish society. We have quite good commercial relations, and at the political level we are on friendly terms and helping each other.
On the commercial side, you mentioned that we have commercial relations. What kind of commercial relations do we have at the moment, and can we expand them further for the benefit of our people?
They can always be expanded, and I would very much love to see that happening. Denmark is a very small country. We don't have natural resources of big amounts, at least, so we have always been basing ourselves on international trade and commerce, and we are only too happy to have trade relations with
What do you import from Pakistan? Do you import agriculture or
agricultural products? Yes, and also some industrial products, textiles, but also in the IT field. The other way around, one topic, at least one of the bigger ones, is machinery, but also services of different kind.
So what Pakistan imports from Denmark, what are the major imports that Pakistan is doing from Denmark into this country?
I think machinery is probably the biggest item, but then also services mainly in the transport sector.
And Denmark is very, very well known for its dairy products and all those things. So is Pakistan importing the dairy products also from Denmark?
I don't think there is an import of any size, at least, but also Pakistan has a huge production of its own, where one could see a scope for cooperation would be in transfer, perhaps, of Danish know-how and technology for the dairy sector, something I would certainly like to see happening.
Denmark is ready to invest in Pakistan in the development of dairy farming sector. That's number one. And also, can Denmark help Pakistan overcome the energy crisis, because Pakistan is faced with huge energy crisis at the moment? So are you ready, your country is ready to invest in these two fields?
Well, of course, it is the decision on investment is made by the individual private companies, but I do see a scope in the field of energy, perhaps especially when it comes to energy efficiency and also renewable energy. Denmark is very strong in windmills, solar energy, biogas, biomass that can be transferred into gas and used as fuel for electricity generation, even in cars. So that's one area where I believe Danish companies have something to offer. But also, and not least, when it comes to energy efficiency, we have a lot of experience in, insulating houses, something like having double or even triple layer windows, having good insulation within the walls. It's something that can reduce energy consumption enormously, and even at the same time creating a better atmosphere. And that's just one example. I mean, we all know about what a difference a low energy light bulb can make. there you can reduce by 80% and still have the same product, the same light coming out of it. And so there's a lot of savings you can make and thereby get more heat, more production, more transport for the same amount of energy.
So how can Pakistan benefit from this expertise from Denmark? You know, have you offered Pakistan, the government of Pakistan, or any other Pakistani private sector company to share this knowledge and technique with them?
I would say at this stage it is already taking place to some extent, but it's driven by private initiative. So companies are looking to this market. They will approach probably the embassy if they like and ask if we can do something to facilitate, maybe suggest some interesting partners for cooperation here. But basically it's driven by the private sector itself.
Is Denmark ready to invest in the energy sector, in the windmill, the wind energy, and the solar energy and other renewable energy which you have mentioned earlier?
Well, I know that there are companies that are looking at the possibilities at this time. I would not be able to predict whether they will decide to go for it or not. But there is an interest, and as I said, the embassy is there to facilitate where we can, and we would certainly be happy to see it happen.
Ambassador, do you have an idea of the volume of trade between the two countries at the moment, and the investment that Denmark has made in this country? The bilateral trade is, very roughly speaking, to the tune of $100 million both ways. Sometimes the balance is in Pakistan's favor, sometimes in Denmark's favor. It's more or less balanced. Okay, and the investment that Denmark has made in Pakistan?
No, I'm afraid I don't have figures for that. I know perhaps some of the most recent investments have actually been made by Danish Pakistanis who are, familiar with both societies, speak both languages, and are also very eager to make a contribution to the development of Pakistan. And there we see perhaps the strongest investments right now.
You mentioned the Pakistani community living in Denmark. What kind of contribution these Pakistanis are making to the development, economic and social development of Denmark?
Certainly, I mean that they are very well integrated. Perhaps the first generation were arriving some, I don't know, 20, 30,
60s and 70s.
Yes, I would say in those years. Many of those perhaps unskilled workers, because there was a need for that at the time, but they have all been very, very keen on securing good education for their sons and daughters, and many of them have excellent university degrees and are contributing. I mean, they're a very valuable contribution to the Danish society and economy.
Some Pakistanis are also participating in the political arena in Denmark, and I met one of the young politicians, a budding young man, young political figure, who met me recently, and he said that he is very active in politics. And can they be the members of parliament in Denmark?
Yes, of course. I mean, they are Danish citizens, and as such, they have exactly the same.
So there is no taboo, there is no bar on anyone who is a citizen of Denmark, but he is not originally from Denmark. He can take part in politics and can be a member of the parliament.
Absolutely, absolutely. I believe currently that there is one Pakistani member, or a person of Pakistani origin, if you like, who's member of parliament. Another one was a member, but he he was not elected last time around, so he was replaced by another one. So currently there's one, but that's only parliament, and of course you have municipal councils, regional councils, and
the local bodies.
Yes. Well, it could also be the nationwide parties, but who are also running for the local democratic bodies. So, no, there's absolutely no bar. Everybody can contribute. It's hard work to be a politician for everybody, but absolutely.
एम्बेसडर विल कंटिन्यू दिस डिस्कशन। नाज़रीन एक मुख्तसर ब्रेक लेते हैं और ब्रेक से वापसी के बाद हम डेनमार्क के सफ़ीर से मज़ीद गुफ्तगू करेंगे पाकिस्तान और डेनमार्क के ताल्लुकात के हवाले से, और डेनमार्क में जो कुछ ऐसी वाक़यात रूनमा हुए जिनकी वजह से पाकिस्तान में एक रद्द-ए-अमल हुआ और इस्लामी दुनिया में भी हुआ, उस पर भी। वेलकम बैक एम्बेसडर। You said that anybody from Pakistan, or for that matter from any other country who's a citizen of Denmark, can be a member of the parliament. But the impression in Pakistan is that somehow or the other, xenophobic policies are being adopted by the Danish government, and the foreigners are not encouraged to come to Denmark and settle down there. Is that true?
That's certainly not how I see it. Of course, in a democracy, in a democratic society, there's a debate, and everything can be debated. And the question of immigration has been the subject of a lot of debate. But I also think it's a healthy thing that you get the debate out in the open. Opinions can clash,
yes.
and then at the end of the day you have to strike a balance and move on. And I think for all certainly European countries that debate exists to some extent. There is of course a lot of influx of refugees and immigrants in general, and there is perhaps also a limit to how much influx any country can cope with. So some lines have to be drawn, but absolutely I think there's a very strong consensus among politicians and the population that those who are indeed living in Denmark they are Danish citizens, they are members of our society, and it's in our common interest that they be integrated as well as at all possible, and at the same time contributing with a different culture that provides some new ways of thinking, some new vitamins, if you like, to the society as well.
Ambassador, that sounds great, but some of the incidents that took place in Denmark, like the drying of cartoons, which were blasphemous, and there was a huge reaction in Pakistan and elsewhere in the Islamic world. Do you think that you have overcome that problem and a religious harmony has been developed in Denmark and the things are now normal?
I think the discussions were I'm sure quite a lot stronger outside Denmark than inside. I mean, immigrants in Denmark were not taking perhaps the same, take it to the same level of discussion. But I mean, we certainly want to promote tolerance, respect among religions, cultures, languages, countries. That is absolutely the overarching line of the Danish government and certainly the Foreign Service. If we look at it from the embassy's perspective in Pakistan, are doing whatever we can to promote another image of Denmark. We would like to show the Pakistani public that Denmark is a friend of Pakistan, that we are actually here to help very concretely, we are providing a substantial amount of funds for emergency aid after the floods in 2010 and 11. We also have a development cooperation with Pakistan, trying to overcome the many difficulties that the country is facing. But we certainly we see Pakistan and the Pakistani people as friends, and we are hoping and working very hard to be seen by the Pakistanis as friends also.
You are sure, or you are quite certain that these kind of incidents will not happen again, so that the anger and the angry reaction does not surface again? Nobody can be certain about anything in this world. Within an open society with freedom of speech and thought, there will be confrontations, there will be debates, there will be expressions that most people do not like, but it's part of the game that it comes out. Many people will say, we don't like that's awful, and then okay, it will we can hopefully put it behind us like that. But in a free debate, you cannot and you should not control what is being communicated, because then it's not a free debate. And although it can bring about things that are unpleasant, we strongly believe that the values of having a free discussion, a free political discussion on everything is so important that it needs to be taken. I mean, it deserves care and protection. There's a general impression in the Islamic world that Europe itself, as an entity, is becoming a tendency of intolerance is emerging in Europe, for Islam particularly. Another country, European country, had banned on the construction of certain, architectural structures for mosques, and other things have been happening. Some of the politicians in some European countries have been advocating that Muslims should be expelled from those societies and countries, and these kind of tendencies are very dominant in Europe. So you think that there is a movement, anti-Islamic movement, that is sweeping through Europe?
Well, there are politicians who would express opinions like the ones you quoted, but I would certainly maintain that military intervention is also called for. But nobody believes that you can solve problems in Afghanistan only through military means. All countries, and then certainly including Denmark, are shifting the focus gradually from military intervention to development aid, to social issues, to education, to rule and law, promoting democracy, educating people in how to practice the democracy, because we strongly believe that is the system that can bring a country forward.
Is Denmark a part of NATO and the international forces which are operating in Afghanistan?
Yes, we are.
You have soldiers present there?
We have, yes.
Okay. But if you believe, Denmark believes that only military solution or military action is no solution to the phenomena of terrorism, then are you exerting your influence in NATO and other forums that a holistic approach, as you mentioned, needs to be taken to address this phenomenon of extremism?
Yes, absolutely. But I would like to say that there's no disagreement on that issue within NATO or ISAF. all countries involved are absolutely aware that there is a huge development task ahead of us, and we and other countries are increasingly investing in the development of, in this case, Afghanistan. So the focus is moving from the military issues. Of course, when security is such a problem that you cannot be there without military protection, then, well, it has to be given high priority. But whenever you can go in and make a contribution to development, that's what really brings the country forward.
In Pakistan too, the phenomena of extremism is visible, and the United States of America and NATO have expressed their concern on the so-called safe havens for terrorists in Fatah and elsewhere. So is Denmark contributing in a concrete manner to eliminate those causes which help breed the extremism and terrorism?
Well, first of all, we certainly, like everybody else, acknowledge that Pakistan has suffered tremendously from terrorism. No country on earth has seen as many citizens killed, be it civilians or members of security forces. So it's a terrible problem in a country like Pakistan. And we see ourselves as friends and collaborators with Pakistan in finding solutions to this problem. And to be more specific, in reply to your question, yes, most of our development aid projects in Pakistan are exactly aiming at creating a better background for a peaceful democratic society. That could be in helping refugees who, if you just leave them in a refugee camp without any social support, obviously that could lead to radicalization. So refugee is one thing. Schools, we are cooperating with UNICEF in reconstructing schools.
Which areas you are constructing these schools?
In the border areas with Afghanistan, so Fatah, KPK predominantly. And also we are working with civil society representatives, helping them in their efforts, and that's important to say, in their efforts. We are not coming here and telling Pakistan how to do things, but those brave people who are really at the forefront of promoting democracy, we're trying to cooperate with them to support them in this.
Are you also operating through the non-governmental organizations in Pakistan? And if so, what are the areas of operation or interest for these NGOs?
Yes, we are. We are, for example, cooperating with PILDAT, which is working in the field of democracy promotion. Also different think tanks and analysts who are, that's the FATA Research Center, correct me if I get it absolutely right.
Institute of Strategic Studies, or?
No, it's, I think it's called FATA Research Center.
Yes.
Who are, for a start, as the name says, researching into how things are developing, and of course always with a view to finding ways of establishing a moderate and tolerant and democratic society.
One way to curb terrorism is to eliminate poverty in certain areas of Pakistan, because those areas are backward economically and socially. Is Denmark doing something to bring the level of understanding and education and economic welfare of these areas so that extremism and terrorism can be brought under control?
Yes, and I agree absolutely. poverty and the feeling of being abandoned is really what creates a breeding ground for radicalization. And yes, we are contributing. Of course, we are a small country. We are a country of 5 million people, so we cannot.
But you have enough resources.
Well, we are certainly. I mean, we are one of the few countries that have met the UN goal of 0.7% that should be allocated to development aid. But of course, alone we do not. We're not a very big donor, but we are cooperating with the EU certainly, and that provides certainly
yes,
a different level of volume.
A lot of projects
Yes.
EU is doing in Pakistan.
Yes, absolutely. And so our projects are, you could say, in line with and coordinated with the EU work, and certainly also we are cooperating with the United Nations and the government of Pakistan, of course.
We take another break. नाज़रीन एक मुख्तसर ब्रेक लेते हैं. ब्रेक से वापसी के बाद हम गुफ्तगू का ये सिलसिला जो है इसको जारी रखेंगे. Welcome back. You have been in Pakistan as ambassador of Denmark. What is your take on Pakistan's society, or particularly in the framework of democracy? Do you think that democracy has chances in Pakistan to become stable and take root in the soil?
Yes, I certainly think so. Democracy is a process. In Denmark, that process started in the middle of the 19th century, and we're still working on it. It's not something that you can just introduce from one day to another.
Overnight, you can't do that.
No, exactly. And we all know that Pakistan has a very
checkered history of democracy.
Troublesome
yes.
past. So democracy always, one of the aspects of democracy is the openness, and that means that you can also see the weaknesses because they're displayed. But that's part of the process, because when you display the weaknesses, then it will compel somebody to do something about it. So that's where the media, as you so brilliantly representing yourself, are playing an extremely important role. They do that in our countries. I mean, as a civil servant, whenever you make a decision and make a move, you have to think, well, how could you be criticized for this by the media or by the ombudsman or parliament, what have you? And that's a healthy thing. That you always know that there are other forces.
This time check is brought to you by
Waves Combo. Beautify my life. A bright freezer and fridge together.
So quite clear to me that, among many other things, is driving the democracy forward.
Media is one pillar of democratic dispensation, but which other institution, to your mind, are playing an important role in keeping the country on democratic track?
Well, actually, I would say all institutions are contributing one way or the other. Of course, we see a lot of again, discussions taking place in these weeks and months. But that's not necessarily a bad thing when you take your difficulties out in the open, you have a discussion about it, and then the institutions find their ways to fill in their individual roles in the democratic society, then it moves forward. But I'm not saying that Pakistan is not facing a lot of problems, because it is, but that's part of the game, and democracy is there to as a setup for solving problems, finding balanced solutions, and if these solutions are not acceptable to the people, then by definition they will be rejected.
Yeah. You mentioned PILDAT. You are cooperating with that organization, and this organization is primarily designed to strengthen democracy and parliamentary process in Pakistan. Are you satisfied with the role of this organization, and do you think that the political parties as they exist today in Pakistan are strong enough to sustain the democratic process?
Well, they are the players in the democracy, so they have to be. Parties are also developing all the time. New parties pop up. Some of the old ones either perhaps are leaving the scene, or they might decide to reform, take another stance. And if all that happens as a reaction to the public opinion, the input you get from the population, often through the media, that's a healthy element in democracy.
But by going by the Western standard or the standard of Denmark, the political parties in Pakistan are of that standard or of that level where they encourage debates within their parties, and they hold elections regularly so that the parties themselves are democratized. Are you keeping an eye on this also?
Well, we are looking with great interest at how the democracy is developing here. As I said before, it is a long process. We have been in it for more than 1.5 centuries. Pakistan has had a very troublesome period with switching between democracy and military rule. That, of course, provides a much more difficult point of departure. It takes time, but it's moving, and I see a Pakistani society and indeed political parties that are determined to move the democracy forward and take all the discussions and the fights that
Are you also contributing to make the electoral process in Pakistan more credible and transparent, because so many other countries are doing that? EU is, for instance, a very major player in this regard. So are you also taking interest in this?
Certainly we're taking interest in it. We don't, for the time being, have specific projects that are aiming at voter registration and technical issues within election, but again we see ourselves as one player in a major group, which is the EU, and we cannot, if we spread our activities to everything, then it will be a very thin layer, because after all we are a small country. So we may focus on some issues where we believe we have a valuable experience, knowing that other partners or the EU itself are active in other fields. So in that way we are, distributing the tasks so that together it can make a difference.
Ambassador, what in your view is the most important area from social point of view, from the point of view of civil society, where Denmark can focus on and can make a big contribution and can make an impact on the society?
Well, again, we have to do it together with other donors to have sufficient volume.
From Danish point of view.
But I think the area where I see the strongest need for development, that's education. To make sure that all children and young people get access to education, that they learn to read and write, they learn their arithmetics and also languages. That is so important and is increasingly important by the day in the way the world is developing, becoming digitalized and globalized. That I see as the most important area where development should be made, and that of course has to happen very importantly in full support of the Pakistani authorities, because we as a foreign country or the EU as a foreign union cannot just come to Pakistan and set up an education sector. It doesn't work like that. It has to come from inside. But what we can do is provide support, perhaps some expertise, share some experience, and in that way support our Pakistani
Any
friends.
specific project in the field of education which draws your attention and where you want to contribute in a very solid way?
Well, we are cooperating with UNICEF in especially the border areas with Afghanistan, the areas that have been most strongly hit by the conflict, and there will also be many displaced persons and refugees. And
You're building schools and colleges?
Yes, together with, supporting UNICEF in their work in that field, yes. That's one of the, all projects are important, but that's certainly a very important project.
थैंक यू एम्बेसडर। नाज़रीन, आज आपने इस नशिस्त में गुफ्तगू सुनी है पाकिस्तान में डेनमार्क के सफ़ीर से, और उन्होंने बहुत सी बातें की हैं। उनके ख्याल में जो मजहबी हमआहंगी है उसके ऊपर डेनमार्क तवज्जो दे रहा है, और उनका ख्याल है कि पाकिस्तान और डेनमार्क के अंदर जो इस वक्त ताउन है उसको बढ़ाया जा सकता है। उन्होंने दहशतगर्दी और इंतहा पसंदी के खात्मे के लिए कहा है कि सिर्फ फौजी एक्शन के जरिए दहशतगर्दी और इंतहा पसंदी पर काबू नहीं पाया जा सकता। उनके ख्याल में एक हॉलिस्टिक अप्रोच की ज़रूरत है, जिसके लिए इक़्तिसादी और समाजी इक़दामात भी होने चाहिए। उनके ख्याल में पाकिस्तान में डेमोक्रेसी जो है वो कामयाबी से चल रही है, और प्रेस को उन्होंने ख़ास तौर पर मीडिया को ट्रिब्यूट पेश किया है, और उनका कहना है कि पाकिस्तान में अगर तालीम आम कर दी जाए तो उससे पाकिस्तानी सोसाइटी में जमहूरियत को फलने फूलने का मौका दिया जाएगा। इसी के साथ ये प्रोग्राम खत्म होता है। जावेद सिद्दीक को इजाज़त दीजिए। खुदा हाफिज़। बस, थैंक यू वेरी मच।
थैंक यू
सो मच।